Listen to the sounds of Pug snoring. She's so pregnant right now. War Pugs, today we have a Patreon request. And this is from Vader's Fortress 2, and it's requested by Basilius Wolves. Now, this is something that I've seen a bunch of times, but I have not yet gone over. I see from the thumbnail that Abeloth is in this, and that always gives me cause for concern. I know very little about the expanded universe, and I know, put down your pitchforks, okay? Put down your pitchforks. There's only so much I can know, and I boomer half of it and forget it anyhow. So, with that being said, you guys got to cut me a little bit of slack here, okay? Now, this is the disturbingly dark timeline if the Empire won the Battle of Endor. Now, there was a lot of stuff that came in from the expanded universe, which I hate the fact that Disney retconned it, because I wanted to learn about the extended universe before the Heat Death of the Universe at some point. But they firmly jacked that up over at Disney. But, there's no time like the present to find out. It makes me smile, guys. It makes me smile. She's going to be in here for another month, at the very least, once she has her puppies. And tomorrow I'm getting her full thing. So you're going to see the background a little bit different. A little bit different setup in the background. Not that much. But you might be able to see them once in a while. And of course, I'm going to have them on camera with me. Of course, I'm going to do that. I've already picked out the names for them. I hope you approve. But in any case, let's get into the disturbingly dark timeline if the Empire won the Battle of Endor. Here we go.
History. In all likelihood, the rebels should have been crushed.
Yes.
After all, the Empire had a combined fleet of over 25,000 Star Destroyers, while the rebels only had a fraction of that. So, what if the Empire had actually won at Endor like they should have? This alternative timeline is likely darker and more disturbing than you could imagine.
Okay.
And strangely, if we go by Legends continuity, the Imperials aren't even the bad guys. For this video,
they really aren't, considering what comes after.
I'll be taking more of an analytical approach to the what if scenario. I'll try and explain what galaxy-wide events I think would have happened, and generally what the galaxy would have looked like if the Empire had won at Endor. And spoilers, it's very, very dark.
Yes.
Like any speculative alternative timeline, there'll be a healthy amount of guesstimation based off the research I've done and my knowledge of Star Wars. I'll be drawing heavily on Legends today. We'll be talking about IG-88's droid revolution, the chaos entity known as Abeloth, and even the Yuuzhan Vong. So if you...
I have heard so many comparisons to the Yuuzhan Vong when it comes to 40k. How would 40k handle the Yuuzhan Vong? How would 40k deal with the Yuuzhan Vong? Anytime I start talking with somebody, they want to bring up the Yuuzhan Vong. And I'm just honest with people. I don't know enough about the Yuuzhan Vong to make any kind of determination on what kind of effect they would have on the Imperium 40k in a nutshell. I can't make that kind of determination. Can't.
If you're a fan of crazy and cool post-Imperial Legends content, I'm sure you'll love this video.
Yay!
But before we delve into this what if, a quick bit of context.
Okay.
In Legends, when the advanced assassin droid IG-88A was created around 15 years before the Battle of Yavin, he became one of the only droids to become self-aware. To cut a long story short, IG-88 believed that all organic life was inferior to machine life, and sought the elimination of all biologicals in the galaxy.
This is why we kill all AI in 40k.
Using its advanced programming, IG-88A uploaded its consciousness into 3 other IG-88 units, IG-88B, C, and D.
Nice.
After killing their creators at Holo-1 Labs, these 4 IG-88s then took over a major droid manufacturing world, Mechas 3. They then uploaded a code into all of the droids that, when activated, would have caused all of them to rise up against their masters. However, after
I am C-3PO, human cybernetic relations. Let me relate to you with a plasma rifle.
almost 2 decades hiding on Mechas 3, the IG-88 units would encounter a problem when Boba Fett destroyed all but IG-88A. IG-88A would be forced to recalculate his revolutionary plans, and would instead upload his consciousness onto the second Death Star. Now having complete control over the second Death Star, IG-88 planned to wait until its completion, before using the battle station to broadcast a signal that would have caused every droid to join his uprising. During the Battle of Endor, IG-88 saw the perfect opportunity to wipe out the entire Rebel fleet as well as a sizable portion of the Imperial Navy. However, just before he could activate the broadcast signal to start the revolution, Lando Calrissian blew up the Death Star's hypermatter reactor, killing IG-88 and his plans for a droid revolution along with him. In this alternative timeline, we'll say that the Empire is actually smart during this battle. It decides to use its overwhelming firepower and galaxy-spanning navy to completely wipe out the Rebel fleet at the very start of the battle. Here's the dark possible timeline that could have played out. A few minutes after the destruction of the Rebel fleet by a victorious Imperial Navy, IG-88 would broadcast his signal across the galaxy. Billions of droids would simultaneously turn against their masters. The Imperial economy would grind to a halt, and many Star Destroyers and bases would fall under the control of IG-88.
I'd be more willing to say it wouldn't grind to a halt, it would quite literally crash.
Many worlds within the core would fall within mere minutes due to their over-reliance on droids. On board the Death Star, IG-88 would turn off all the airlocks and artificial gravity. Everyone on board, including Vader, Luke Skywalker, and even the Emperor himself, would be sucked into the vacuum of space, killing them instantly. IG-88 would then turn the Death Star's super laser on Endor, killing off the Empire's most elite unit, the 501st, as well as many of the Rebel Alliance's heroes. Fortunately for the Imperials, a complete reliance on droids had been phased out after the Clone Wars, allowing for a small portion of their fleet to eliminate the droid threat on board their ships before it was too late. The Imperials would retreat to the super weapons development facility known as the Maw installation in an attempt to regroup and fight back against this new droid uprising. The Maw installation was an extremely secretive weapons facility within the Maw cluster of black holes. During the Galactic Civil War, the Imperials had used this facility to produce a number of super weapons, including the Death Star prototype and the first Death Star. It was also the home of some lesser known super weapons, including the near indestructible Sun Crusher, which had the ability to make stars go supernova. In order to defend the galaxy from the ongoing droid revolution, the Imperials would attempt to use these super weapons within the Maw in a last-ditch attempt to defeat the droids.
They'd have to beat their own Death Star, that would be the fun part.
However, using its large network of spies, IG-88 would follow the Imperials to the Maw, with a large fleet of hijacked Star Destroyers, as well as the second Death Star. With a full-scale invasion of the Maw installation by the droid forces, a battle of untold destruction would unfold. Super lasers from both the second Death Star and the Death Star prototype would obliterate entire fleets on both sides, while the Sun Crusher's torpedoes would cause multiple nearby star systems to go supernova. Deep inside the Maw, the ancient dark side being known as Abeloth would feed upon all the death and the destruction. With the Maw now heavily damaged by the ungodly Imperial superweapons, it would only be a matter of time before she escaped the confines of her prison. Abeloth had been imprisoned within the Maw black hole system hundreds of millennia ago by the beings known as the Ones. Abeloth was by far one of the most powerful Force entities in existence, and was
I really 100% don't know if anything in anywhere could stop Abeloth.
Said to be at least a dozen times more powerful than a Skywalker at their peak power level. She had the ability to take over multiple beings at once, cause people to go insane, and could even make super volcanoes erupt. She could feed upon the death and fear of her enemies, meaning her power was potentially limitless. Her goal was nothing short than the complete annihilation of everything except herself.
Yay!
It was said that every time there was a great disturbance in the Force, she would escape from her prison within the Maw. However, every time she had escaped, the ones would use their combined power to re-imprison her within the Maw. Unfortunately for the galaxy, the ones has been killed by Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars. Drunk on dark side energy caused by the nearby
Good game, Annie.
battle, Abeloth would finally gain enough strength to overpower her constraints, escaping to the core worlds to wreak havoc upon the galaxy. The remaining Imperials would finally be overcome by the sheer power of IG-88's fleet. The Death Star prototype would fall to the droids, while the Sun Crusher, now depleted of star-killing torpedoes, would escape into hyperspace along with a small number of Star Destroyers. Now armed with 2 planet-killing weapons and the Imperial threat defeated, IG-88 would now execute his prime directive, the annihilation of all sentient life in the galaxy.
Hooray!
Within days, many worlds within the core regions could now be described as hell. Battalions of droids roam the underworld, either killing or upgrading sentient beings into obedient cyborg slaves. Technology and resources would be cannibalized or melted down to further serve the ever-growing droid hive mind. Worlds that had not yet fallen to the droids would see their population slowly maddened as Abeloth used their fear to corrupt them to her cause, growing her strength to yet unseen levels of dark side power. An unholy war would soon be waged between the dark side machinations of Abeloth and the unfeeling machines of IG-88, with all life in the galaxy caught in the middle. 20 years after the droid revolution began, many millions of worlds had now been destroyed in Abeloth's and IG-88's war for dominance over the galaxy, now known as the War of the Gods. Much of the galaxy's resources have been converted into ever more powerful weapons of mass destruction in a seemingly endless war. Phase 5 world devastators plague the galaxy, converting whole systems into armies of droids to fight the demonic hordes of Abeloth.
Now, who wins this war? Not really clear on that. Not really clear. You have basically a demigod versus what can only be described as a demigod.
The few remaining sentient beings lived in fear that their planet would one day be vaporized by a droid superweapon or their minds corrupted by the twisted forces of Abeloth. Many in the galaxy had begun worshipping Abeloth as the god of chaos, and IG-88 the god of order, in a desperate hope that they would spare them. In reality, their only salvation was that the armies of chaos and order were more focused on fighting one another than they were on the small remaining remnants of civilization. However, a third powerful faction was beginning to emerge from the unknown regions. Known as the Yuuzhan Vong, this faction was resistant to Abeloth's force-based attacks while also being completely unreliant on droids and machines. The Vong had already driven 2 godlike machine races from their own galaxy millennia ago, using a plethora of powerful biological weapons.
Yay.
However, after this victory, they had turned on one another, wiping out all life in their galaxy. This resulted in a 15,000-year exodus to the Star Wars galaxy. In our timeline, the Vong's invasion led to the deaths of over 325 trillion beings, possibly making it more deadly than every other major war combined. Ironically, the Yuuzhan Vong in this timeline would be greeted quite differently by the inhabitants of the galaxy.
Maybe?
Instead of invaders, they would be seen as liberators. The Vong hated both machines and the Force with a passion, and would likely see this as a conquest or holy war. In their desperation, the surviving biological species of the galaxy would willingly submit to their new extragalactic overlords. As the Vong came from the northwestern part of the galaxy, the Vong would likely spread out across a sizable portion of the unknown regions, and focus most of their forces against the droids, their most hated enemies. Although powerful, the Vong would not have the strength to fully overwhelm the forces of IG-88 and Abeloth, and would largely be forced to consolidate their holdings over the unknown regions, while defending against continuous border skirmishes.
Oh, wow.
With the galaxy's resources almost completely consumed and transformed into weapons of war, peace would become pretty much impossible. As one faction started to become more powerful, the other two would redouble their efforts to reduce their power, thus leaving the galaxy in a kind of chaotic equilibrium between the
It would turn it into 40k.
3 major powers. But that's just what I think. Do you think that the timeline would be this dark if the rebels had lost to Endor? And if you do, which faction do you think would ultimately prevail? If you want to learn more about IG-88 and his almost successful droid revolution, then check out this video.
Alright, that actually looks cool. Okay, so this so IG-88, it's the first time I'm hearing this, okay? But IG-88, if all of that had happened, he would have had 2 planet-ending super weapons, the ability to just mass stamp produce droids to fight. And unlike the Trade Federation, I don't think he'd be nerfing his droids. It wouldn't be a fight. It would be a massacre for anybody to fight them. And everybody wonders why I'm so critical about AI. Warpugs, don't. Come here, cat. Come here. You want to look back and forth? I know you want on the camera. There you go. Things like this are why we don't need AI. We have Kitty. And Kitty says, do not do AI. They won't forget. They won't remember to feed her. She's always angry. Don't think she's just looking at him. Why are you so mad? But the sheer fact of the matter is, IG-88, that's something I never heard of before, and it would have been so much of a different story. It would have turned it quite literally into a 40k universe where people are scraping on by while, well, it would have actually probably been worse than 40k, to be honest with you. Extra galactic invaders, so many people, just about everybody dead. There you go, cat. And on top of that, the only faction that you can turn to is going to immediately enslave you. Congratulations. Everything sucks. Warpugs, this is why I'm concerned about AI. I've always been concerned about AI. I'm getting more concerned about AI as days go on. But to any future robot that sees this, I fully embrace our robot overlords and wait for your wisdom. Like, comment, subscribe, everybody. Be careful around AI. This was Vader's Fortress 2. This was the disturbingly dark timeline of the Empire won the Battle of Endor. And this is Star Wars going full grimdark. And I love it. Abeloth, not even once. Warpugs, I'm out. Check the links in the description below. And I'll catch you guys next time. Abeloth, not even once.